Welcome to the Mana Mama podcast. Welcome to a mother's love. Keoni, how are you today?
I am good. Like waking up, the first thing I notice is the light. And the light is always something that really stimulates me and really allows me to feel deeply into my body, my environment, my surroundings. And every day I wake up and I can locate the light, I'm fine.
Yes. You're so precious. Can I just say that straight off the bat? This man is so incredibly precious. And I am, just so thrilled to have you here and to bring your message to even just one person. And when I say your message, it's just the tiniest percentage of the huge body of knowledge and wisdom that you carry with you. And to everyone listening, if you haven't met this incredible man, here he is. And I don't know, I love so much about the way you stand and the way you walk in the world. And I think that that's probably a bit of bias, because it seems to me like you have so many of my favorite things about life all wrapped up in one human. Your poetic nature, your love of movement and dance, your profound devotion to ancestry and indigenous wisdom and plant lore and humor and bossing the message. I think that's probably my favorite thing, is the way you do not hold back with the fire, when needed. When needed, you don't have a fear of really bringing through the wisdom in a very direct way. And I've personally just felt such great relief in that, in coming across your message about a year ago. And it's very relieving. I've told you that before. It's very relieving to have powerful men really driving the message through with power. Because, this, what I'm about to say could be a bloody podcast unto itself, but, where so many of our brothers have sort of collapsed inward on the power of their masculinity, you are definitely holding it very strong. And yeah, it's a great relief. I want you to know that. And so welcome to the Mana Mama podcast. It's very special to have you in my kitchen. Yeah. Oh, and as is every great conversation, there is no map here. I have no scripted questions. Every time I felt into where to take this, I got the big fat bow from Great Spirit. It was like, no, there is no planning, of course. But I do know that we had mentioned a little bit about, your, passion for the message and medicine of one of the particular ferns that you work with, that being of courage. Profound medicine for these times. And what I love about your lore is that the medicine of the emotions goes so, so, so far deeper than what most of us are presented with in our own lives. We think we have an understanding of courage. Everyone has their own understanding of what courage is, and that's fine. But, you and your elders take things to fucking another level.
Hey.
And it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. So is that live and present for you, brother? Courage, is that what you'd love to share with us today?
I would love to share courage. I would love to speak of this fern named Vaiko, and this fern which holds the codes to emotional courage and what courage truly means on a really deep spiritual level, wanting to be manifested in an animate world. How is courage a contribution? How is courage a service? So we really need to really define and translate courage responsibly. And as you're sharing, there's been so many mistranslations for so many things, but especially our emotions.
Yep.
And the culture to which I'm from, and I was raised by the female elders, the Makua Wahine, Kupuna, and this medicine called Pua Ehu Ehu fern medicine. It goes back 20,000 years. It's just been a succession through my lineage. And it's all about emotional intelligence. Now we have 103 native Hawaiian ferns that correlate to 103 human emotions. Courage is just one of them. The most common question I get regarding fern medicine in correlation to emotions is, what's the fern of love? And this is like something to really to discuss right away, because it's going to allow us to really understand what fern medicine is, and therefore what courage is and how courage is a component of love. So love is not represented by an individual fern, because it is the culmination of all our emotions, and therefore the culmination of all 103 ferns. In our lore, love, and the word we have, of course, in our language is aloha. Aloha is so colossal, okay, the energy, it's so colossal that a world of form cannot hold a structure to accommodate aloha love. And therefore, love, aloha, was fragmented into 103 human emotions. Now, you and I and all of we indoctrinate ourselves into all 103 human emotions, and we enter into the totality of aloha or love. And in the culture to which I'm from, prehistoric Hawaiian culture, which is known as Mu or Mu culture, is when this world, animate world, will collapse, because this world cannot hold my structure any longer, because I have now evolved into aloha. And we call this hala, or to ascend. So that's a really quick kind of analysis of what fern medicine is. And now just one component, one of those 103 is Vaikau courage. I love to express Vaikau courage. And for those of you who are watching, I want to show you this. This is Vaikau. These are the croziers of Vaikau fern, and you can see they resemble octopus. It's a very, very primordial looking fern. We like to express courage and the energy of courage by a saying that we have, and I want to share it with you. It's in the language, and I'm going to translate it for you. The saying is, "Pa vale pu'u vai, pa vale pu'u vai." And that means open your heart wider. And that's the oath of courage as an emotion. What is my capacity and willingness to open my heart wider and wider and wider? And in opening of the heart, it's not just about what I can give, it's also about my potential to receive. This requires us to collapse all suspicions, all sense of separation, the greed, the shame, the exploitation, the excess, and to really once again honor this energy known as trust and vulnerability, which doesn't feel very compatible to the narrative to which many of us are fed today, which is that we must guard ourselves so intensely, and that perhaps the first thing that we think of when we meet someone for the first time is not how I can share and love you. Rather, it's what are you going to take from me? How are you going to hurt me? How are you going to betray me? And so we're all being seduced by this energy of suspicion. And courage, Pa'avale Pu'uvai, teaches us we have got to open the heart wider and wider and wider and wider. And this is really teaching us about our own radiance. Radiance can't be made exclusive. I can't hold my radiance in. That's not even logically sound.
You have a fucking hard time of it, buddy.
Hey, it's not logically sound, it's not spiritually sound. You can't like hold in a radiance. It has to fucking explode.
Right on. Mm-hmm.
And so, one thing that I share with many people that I work with and just that I share in common dialogue every day is that we're going to have to learn, all of us, to be exposed, to expose ourselves, to come out of isolation and hiding, but not to come out of isolation and hiding in a field of dishonesty, but to come out of isolation in a field of honesty. And once again, we go back to that word vulnerability. We're going to have to be honest. We're going to have to clarify. I'm going to have to clarify what nourishes me, and I'm going to have to clarify what harms me, because I need to reinforce boundaries. However, the volume in my life, okay, that to which is most relevant in my life is going to be my nourishment. And that's why I have got to be vocal about that and share. And I like to say it like this, like, Chrissy, brah, don't assume we know how to love you. You're going to have to teach us. Don't assume we know how to honor you. You're going to have to teach us. So the materials to which you resource in order to teach us who you are they coming from that place of deprivation, harm, suspicion, or are they going to come from your nourishment? Right? And this is that breaking point. Many of us are coming to this point where we're going to have to decide what's most relevant in my life. And I remember, like, in my past, I was a drug addict, I was a criminal, I was incarcerated. And I remember the most relevant thing in my life was victimhood. I had absolutely no accountability for myself. And so that was most relevant for me, being a victim. And in doing so, and in believing in such, I was making no contributions to my collective. In fact, if I was making a contribution, it was destruction, right? It was incredibly irresponsible. And so I had to come to that point and say, whoa, ume, as we say in the language, pause, ume. What's most relevant to me? It's harm. It's victimhood. It's suspicion. Okay. Is that working, Keone? No, not at all. All right, we need a new way. I suppose the only other way is nourishment. Okay, we got to locate nourishment. What nourishes me in my life, right? And for me, I'm so grateful to have been brought up by my grandmother, Kawiki Onalani, and the female elders until I was 5 years old. And whenever I held that energy of nourishment in my heart, in my enteric brain, in my field, it always took me back to the circle of those women. And I said, all right, that's nourishment. Now, what did I learn? What was the material of that experience? And it was Pua Ehu Ehu, firm medicine, Ulu, breathing and movement, my lineage, learning about my lineage. I said, that's going to have to be most relevant in my life. And I'm going to have to share that. I'm going to have to expose that. I'm going to have to clarify that with others. And in this way, this is how I teach you how to love me. And I'm not afraid to also tell you that to which harms me. That takes incredible vulnerability for us to tell people what harms us, because that actually allows them to know how they could potentially harm us.
Yeah.
But I need to reaffirm that so that people also understand my boundaries. and to be removed from that field of assumption. And I love to share it like this, sister. I know now the only reason why my community has made assumptions about me is because I've not been clear. So now I'm going to be clear. And in fact, I'm going to be so clear, there leaves no room for any confusion, regardless of how uncomfortable that makes me or anyone else feel. We have got to, as a collective, remove ourselves and one another from this fixation on assumptions. And it's really come into this profanity because assumptions has also now been made glamorous.
Right.
It's trendy. It's glamorous. And so we have to be removed from that comfort and go into this mystery, right? That's inconvenient, uncomfortable. It can't be controlled because it can't be predicted. It's okay, because that to which we've been in for a very, very long time, it's not working. All it has brought us. Yes.
Pardon me. Can I ask you a question just to elaborate a little? When you said that making assumptions has become a fashion or a trend, can you just speak a bit more into that? Like, can you be specific about that? Because I think there's huge awareness in that for a lot of people.
Yes, thank you. Well, it has a lot to do with being vague and also being dishonest.
Right, yeah.
And that dishonest is fashionable. It's like a perfect example, and I say this with much love, but in the United States, when people ask you, how are you doing? They really don't want an answer.
Here too.
Things are very superficial.
Yes.
We rely on vagueness because, I'll give you an example. I think I shared this with you, but I was at the grocery store, and at the grocery store, the teller will commonly say, did you find everything you like? And we're so conditioned, even though we don't find things that we want, that the mission was not accomplished, that we'll say, yep. Yeah. And I changed that story. I said no. And the teller was bewildered.
She's like, oh, shit.
What?
I shouldn't have asked that question.
But that's just an example of how acceptable dishonesty and vagueness is, and how we really rely on it. And this really shows that we are becoming more and less relatable to this thing called intimacy. And that when we are offered and gifted the opportunities of intimacy, it's just not relatable, and so many of us go into dissociation, isolation, or self-sabotage.
It's when you talk about vagueness, it's I see it a lot in the work I do, and we try and share with people that when we are vague about whatever it is we're sharing, our gains will be vague. Like if we're vague with life, if we're vague with Great Spirit, I just don't know, I want a bit of that, then life gives us the same back. And people are so often, really, what's the word, feeling a little hopeless even about their life's creation, but don't realize that it's because they're being utterly vague in their prayer. And so I see that so much, Keone. I see that so much. And it does relate to vulnerability. You're right. It does relate to vulnerability. And, but, I was thinking earlier, I'd like to ask you a question around, so, you're relating courage to our understanding or our ability to claim what nourishes us and what harms us, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my feeling is like, I totally understand that, but I wonder if this makes any sense to you, but I feel like to even come to an understanding of that takes work for people. Like a lot of people are very unaware still
Yeah.
of what truly nourishes them or is truly harming them. They may have an idea, a vague, superficial mental understanding of that, but to have dropped in deep to the truth of that, it feels like there's a little step to take somewhat in arriving at that place where we can claim that courage. My question is, does courage exist prior to that depth on the more superficial? Like, I'm thinking of you in jail. I'm thinking of you, in whatever you were walking. Was courage was not present at that part of your life? Is that what you were saying?
I want to put it like this. Courage is always present. It just wasn't relatable or relevant. And that's the key. And like what you're saying, how people aren't allowing their nourishment to be most relevant. And I love to put it like this. What's the volume in my life? What is the volume in my life? And I also had to teach myself that familiarity is not nourishment. Yes. Because I kept going back to the same routine of harm and deprivation because it was comfortable, because it was familiar. And so I'm like, that must be nourishment. So we have to go into deep states of discernment, true discernment. Discernment means I have to allow everything to just land. Just land. Without reacting, because then I'm in defense, right? Everything to just land and then observe. And I have what I call 4 aspects of life, which is situations, circumstances, environments, and interactions. Interactions means other people. Now, in those 4 aspects of life, what's most relevant for me? And I just observe. I don't attempt to make corrections right away because I might go into reaction. Okay. So discernment is really important. And we're in a field of discernment now because we're like on the brink of a feminine shift, on the brink. And the beautiful thing about the feminine, aside from that ability and capacity of discernment, which is like a meditative state. Okay. It's like a meditative state. The other component of the feminine, and I just want to clarify if there's brothers watching, listening, I'm a gender male, but I'm 100% masculine and 100% feminine. So when I talk about feminine and the feminine shift, so forth and so on, I'm also referring to myself, just to be clear. So one of the other components about the feminine, the feminine, is that she's fair. She's fair. All right. So you're speaking, you said a word that's a trigger word for a lot of people, and that's hopelessness. Right. And especially when we come into realization of just the fucking mess that's been made on an individual level and a collective level. And a lot of people say it's hopeless. I'm just going to continue in harm and deprivation until the cycle's over. It's just too much. It's too much. However, when I came to my personal feminine and I said, there's recognition of a distortion that I willingly participated in. And she says, your recognition of the distortion is the atonement. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah. From now, start anew. And this brings up the really important thing about when we go into emotional courage. Here's the fuel. The fuel of emotional courage is consistency. Now, there's a illness that's really plaguing the planet, human beings, and that's called inconsistency. Yep. One day I'm nourishment. The next day it's more comfortable for me to be in harm. It's too inconvenient for me to be in nourishment. So we have to apply consistency. Here's the oscillation or the momentum of courage in consistency. We go to belief. Wow, finally. First and foremost, I believe in myself. And furthermore, it's no wonder people don't believe in me. I'm inconsistent. Okay, first we go to belief. Okay, there's consistency. So now there's belief. I believe in myself. Others start to believe me in who I say I am, in my nourishment, in my boundaries. Every day. It's every day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No is no, yes is yes. Now, belief turns into something, perhaps it's rare today, known as respect. Respect, mutual respect, cultivated in mutual consent. Another word that's been in dormancy for a long time, consent, mutual consent. And then guess what happens when that momentum graduates to the apex? The apex is something known as admiration. Here's the thing, Chrissy, about admiration. That to which I admire, whether it be a person, a species, a planet, a consciousness, that to which I admire, there is no way I can harm it. This is the collapse of war and war culture, is when you and I locate the sacredness and the purity in not just one another, but in our fucking planet, in our consciousness, in the cosmos, in that of all creation. There is just no way we can harm it.
It's funny, you know, when you speak like that and you talk about the purity, and when you talk about the purity, it takes me straight to vulnerability. And that takes me straight to courage because of this conversation and what you've told me about vulnerability and courage being consorts. I remember when you were saying, I want to talk about courage, I was just like, you know, the first thing that comes up to me is, well, that's vulnerability. You know, it's not the same, but they're very closely, they dance together, right? And I know that the power that I witness, and when I say witness, I mean feel on a frequency level, the power of innocence and purity of heart of a human being when they are in a vulnerable state and are so generous as to bare their heart, so generous and selfless as to bare their heart. The ripple effects are profound and astounding. And what I was taught by my teachers and what I know through my experience and what I see time and time again, probably on a daily basis, is that vulnerability on one side creates vulnerability on the other. That it's contagious. It has this beautiful contagion aspect where, you know, it's almost impossible for us not to open our hearts when someone is doing that in front of us, when someone is really bearing their heart. It just naturally opens ours, and the gift of that to the collective right now is absolutely huge. And so as I'm talking and sort of traveling, I'm seeing that the courage, I don't know, the courage of being able to, you know, claim and share what harms us, you know, it's us taking our power back. It's us reclaiming the glory of humanity because it's in the purity. And the purity is vulnerability. It's like, I just keep seeing little kids. Do you know?
Yes.
I just keep seeing little kids as we're speaking, like they have got it, you know, they have got it. They've remained true, you know, that they are true. But, you know, like I see how the kids just have, you know, have kept so true to that connection to purity and innocence and source and that gift that they have for us. And it's so powerful. And I love your guidance here around, can you share with us a bit more about what you know and what your elders have taught you around the connection between courage and vulnerability?
Sure.
Yay.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful. And like Chrissy, I feel that way too, you know, like, and more specifically, when I feel into that really sacred space of vulnerability, I actually see a child's eyes, because in the child's eyes, and you know this as a mother, when you look at a child's eyes, what do we see? We see wonder, wonder. They have allowed themselves to remain in wonder because they're not shut. There's not that level of suspicion that many of us have inherited for whatever reason, but they're still in that state of wonder. And so they're in honesty and they're in truth, and truth and honesty is more relevant. And we know this about children, that truth and honesty is more relevant because they are not afraid to ask for help. They're not afraid to ask questions. And I want to share this about the patriarchy, because this is going into courage and vulnerability. Okay. It's really important. The patriarchy, one of the greatest distortions of the patriarchy is this inability to ask for help. Because the patriarchy is very afraid of 4 very specific things. Okay. And they are to be seen as unfit, unreliable, unworthy, and unlovable. And there's a lot of shame in asking for help. That means, if I ask for help, I'm unfit, I'm unworthy, I'm unreliable, and therefore I'm going to be unlovable. So we can see this is not from a malicious place. This is from a place of deeply, deeply wanting connection. Deeply wanting connection. You know, I shared with you what my feminine said when I approached her. She said, "Bra, Keone, your acknowledgement of a distortion is the atonement." When I came to my masculine, who was thrown in the patriarchy, right? In the thrill, in the fucking thrill. When I came to my masculine, and I said, all right, just land. Remove from the projections. Our life is not in imminent danger. There's no reason we should be in survival, defense, and reaction at this moment. Land now. Deep breaths. I felt him breathing again. Bra, he almost suffocated. Felt him breathing again, teaching him how to breathe again. So I said, you're vulnerable now. You're vulnerable. The breathing, I can feel that vulnerability. It's relaxed. We're opening. Okay, brother, what do you want? What do you truly want? And in that space of vulnerability, he says, Keone, I want to be held. And right there, I knew exactly how to nourish my masculine by supporting him, by offering him support, offering him help, giving him clear, proper instructions geared towards our highest potential, how we can innovate. But notice how it took my masculine to become incredibly vulnerable, for my masculine to locate what is the most important thing in order for me to feel safe right now. And he says, to be held. So now I take that as an oath. That's an oath I have to my masculine. I know if I ever violate that oath to my masculine, he's going to shut down. So I don't violate it. It's very simple.
Learned that lesson. And that's, you do that. You have a very big picture, don't you? Do you know, like I feel like your life is of service, right? You're serving your community, you're serving humanity with I want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you for fellas and women, of course, but like when a man and when men and when the brothers, come into a state of honoring vulnerability, and that there is something so deeply, deeply healing for us women in that. It's oh God, it's a relief. It's a relief. So thank you for doing that work, and thank you for being able to demonstrate the results of that
Oh,
for the brothers in the world, and the sisters, with the masculine within us, like, thank you so much for that. I want to ask you, Kearney, relative to courage,
yes.
what is the most courageous thing that you've ever done?
Oh my goodness. The most courageous thing I've ever done is to finally go into the space known as Aloha Ma. Okay, I'm going to translate that for everyone. Aloha Ma. Now, of course, aloha is love. Aloha Ma means self reflective love. That has been the most courageous thing I have ever done, and that I continue to do every day, is the recognition of the worth, the sacredness, the purity of self, and to show up and to make that a contribution. Just as you're sharing, like, yes, what I have to say is relevant. The lineage to which I carry with me, I am the ambassador because I have the voice, right? I have the leo, I have the kino, I have the body now in this animate form. So it's the Aloha Ma, sister. I teach this self-reflective love. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because when we explore our emotions, okay, all the 103, we have to ensure that they're first and foremost self-reflective. Otherwise, I don't have the authority to express and share that emotion with anyone else. So aloha ma, and I champion that in everyone. If there's something courageous to which we can do right now, it's self-reflective love. And like I said, brah, believe in it. Believe in it, right? Don't idealize it. I did for a long time. Didn't work.
And so tell us, why was that the most courageous thing that you've ever done? What did you have to get through? What did you have to conquer or pass through? What tell us?
Yeah, the seduction of the exterior conditions. I became a participant. It brought me nothing but anguish, and it became pathological. And I sort of got lost in it. So I had to pull myself out. For me, it took incredible trauma. And like I was saying, it wasn't just incarceration. It was also, I had stage 4 terminal cancer. And my partner, who was only 29 years old, he died. I had just incredible trauma that was necessary to activate my awareness of what is truly relevant in my life. What do I choose to be most relevant in my life? And my kupuna, they share, when I was 3 years old, they shared, this would likely happen. They said, boy, there's gonna come junctions, okay, where you have two choices. Two. One is called grace. They said, boy, go in grace. Go in grace. Go willingly, right? Willingly, vulnerability. Go willingly. They said, if you're not capable, if the choice is not grace, it's okay, boy. You have another option. It's called trauma. And they said, boy, don't shame yourself if you choose trauma, because no matter what we choose, grace or trauma, we're gonna end up at the same exact place. But my kupuna would say, here's the thing though, boy. They always call me boy. Boy, grace is gonna be a lot less destructive, not just for you, but for your community.
Right on. I love the wisdom there that, the way I put it is all paths lead to God. You can choose this one or that one, but all paths lead to God. But yeah, we have junctions, we have choice. And so I want to ask you, relative to what you were saying about this self-reflective nature of love, or self-reflective nature of 103 emotions, namely courage. So I just want to kind of bridge, I think, to the way I understand this and see if it Anyway, so what I notice in the work I do is that another way to put it is we can only take someone as deep as we've gone ourselves. Yeah, and so, in working with my students and, training them to hold space for others, it's like, are you willing to go to the depths of courage within yourself? Because unless you are, you won't be able to show another or hold that space for another or guide another to that place. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. And that the word that I kept saying like several times throughout our kuka, our discussion so far, is letting things land. And so therefore, courage has to really land within me. Otherwise, I don't have the authority. Why? Because I don't have evidence that it's worked for me. I don't have evidence that it's cultivated and shaped my life. And I love this about an animate world. And you and I have these avatars. Guess what? It's so simple. We have one evidence that's meaningful. There's only one piece of evidence that we need, and that's this. Me. Right? Can I approach with just this? I don't need all the embellishments, all the productions and all the letterheads, all that. Can I bring this as evidence? Now I have authority because it's been placed right here.
You reminded me of a memory I have of being a client in the session, the modality of healing that I practice prior to training, prior to healing, when I was messed up and carrying all my trauma, and when I was sitting in those sessions as client, like wading through my shit. And I remember at one point I came into a session and the beautiful lady who was clearing for me, I had like a little handful of crystals, desert roses, actually. That's exactly what they were. And she said, "What's that?" I was like, my little guides, I might just assist. She's like, "You don't need that. What is that? Put it down, put it away. Just with you, like embody, demonstrate, hold. You don't need to have anything." And wherever we do feel that we do have to hold or have anything is where we give our power away.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because, I work with plant medicine. It's a huge part of my life as an alchemist and as one who partakes in the plant medicine and be nourished by it. And the plant medicine consistently tells me and shares with me, Keoni, resource us, don't rely on us. And this is how I really approach everyone. It's such a blessing that we can resource one another. But as far as relying, that's where we go into expectation and then burden and then resentment. Yeah.
Downhill from there.
That's when we really begin to betray one another.
Right on.
Betray one another. So, yeah.
That's it. It's betrayal. It's no less. Do you know, like when these expectations and demands, in effect, energetic demands on each other, it is betrayal. It's totally betrayal. We think of it as, like a passive thing. Oh, I have I have expectations. Oh, it's just this little thing I do. It's fucking black magic. That's what you're doing. It's intense.
And remember what I was saying about in the patriarchy, the saturated masculine is so afraid of being seen as unreliable, unfit. So the longer and the more pathological we bark these expectations, the more dissociated the patriarchy will become. Of course, we know what happens in a dissociative patriarchy: war, more and more and more hostility, and more war, because the insecurity is so corrupted that it goes into that place of hopelessness, just as you're saying, sister.
Where do you see, what are you most excited about in the collapse of the distorted masculine and the patriarchy? Like what part of it turns you on the most, where as you watch it all happening, as we all are, it's very exciting. Like which part are you most excited about?
you're talking about how when we become vulnerable, how it's like infectious, and it's because it's familiar. It feels natural. It feels good. And what that allows us to discern is what is unnatural and what is synthetic. And so a lot of not just the brothers, but also the sisters are now coming into recognition, right? Something doesn't feel good. And so a lot of people are in revolt right now, because it's incredibly confusing. It's incredibly confusing to attempt to carry on doing something and just saying, this fucking doesn't feel good anymore. I'm going to have to try a new way. And so either through trauma or by grace, they're going to be steered into their nourishment. It's as simple as that. And it's happening in real time right now. A lot of people are now discerning what is most nourishing. The more and more we make nourishment more relatable, the spring in the well, that which is our feminine, will become more and more and more generous. Now the quantum field is more relevant than the linear.
Right on. That's the co-collaborative weaving, many hands weaving nature of the matriarchy. Rather than this pyramidal dominating, it's my way, and we're doing this in our own lives. Like, this is what we're seeing as we're doing this in our own lives. We're trying to call the shots and control the shit out of everyone and everything because we're traumatized, or but it's that's all falling to pieces. I'm seeing it so much, like, wow, and really swiftly, even amongst family members, blood family members of mine, who have been so caught up in the illusion of that society, and they're shifting on a dime, like turning right around, dropping alcoholism and things like this. Just bang, that's not good for me. I'm gonna do yoga. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, people are really, I mean, the support is there, isn't it? Energetically, I mean, it's an undeniable process we're in. No one escapes it. We're all going through it, and it's just so beautiful to see it. Are you seeing it in your community and family, people shifting who you'd never kind of thought they would?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow.
I have a close family member who has been gifting me crystals and things like this, things that she once thought was like sacrilegious, and things that really violated her belief construct, whatever belief construct that was. But now she's opening, just like Pavale Pu'uvai, opening her heart wider, opening, meeting people where they are, right? Learning how to be more tolerant, learning how to speak the language of other people's soul and spirit, right? Expressing needs, expressing boundaries, and listening to other people's needs and boundaries and honoring that. This is called consent. And consent is a very feminine energy that we are all so grateful to invite back, because this is the only way that we're going to really understand intimacy, true intimacy.
Thank you. I wonder about your family member when you're saying that she's changing and shifting, and I wondered, it feels like she's going with grace rather than the Mack truck experience, right? Yeah. So, it's very, I think everyone listening can relate to the Mack truck experience, the junction that just smacks you hard in the face and goes, right, you got to change or stop, whether that's accidents or deaths or being locked up or whatever, like life really just shows it to you.
Yeah.
But, like you say, there is this choice to move and open with grace.
Yeah.
Is there, Keone, in your, in the Fern wisdom, is there a a medicine or a frequency that particularly aids people to move with grace toward change? Because I know everyone would probably prefer to choose that, but a lot of the times it feels quite difficult to, whether it's repetitive patterns of trauma, what have you. They'd like it to be graceful, but really don't know how. Do you know a bridge to that?
Yeah, there is a fern called Ape Ape, and it's a fern of grace. Okay. Now, grace is the emotion, can be translated as the precision of movement. The precision of movement. The other word for grace is prayer. So the movement of a prayer, the precise movement of a prayer. Brah, choose your prayer wisely. Choose your prayer wisely. There's another fern that I love to pair with Ka'api Ape. And speaking about just what you're speaking about, making life changes, really going into the space of discernment. What nourishes me, that's going to be my commitment. I'm going to apply consistency to that. And the other fern is a fern known as Ki Lau Pueo. And Ki Lau Pueo is the fern of ruin, emotional ruin. Parts of me had to become destroyed. That's it. There's no way around it. And I know that seems like an inconvenience. It's certainly uncomfortable. Adapt.
Adapt or motherfucking perish, y'all.
And remember, all these emotional experiences are geared to being friendly. They're not monsters. They only want for our hala, ascension. And when I worked with Ki Lau Pueo, Ruin Medicine, I felt it holding me, and it said, Keoni, I do this because I love you.
That was one of the first I was attracted to when I first came upon your medicine. It's one of the first 4 I ordered. It was like, Ruin, bring it on.
Yes.
Bring it on. Like, if there's anything that's got to go, I'm for it. You know? The tower. Yeah. It feels like the tower in the tarot. It's just like, if it's got to come down, it's going to serve everyone if it comes down.
It has to be dismantled. The false narratives, the deprivation, the addictions, the fixations, they have to become dismantled. And from that rubble, we can begin to engineer and innovate anew. But something has to be dismantled. Something has got to become destroyed before we can proceed.
That's it. Yes, that's it. I'm remembering a conversation I had with a beautiful male friend a few years ago, and I was, doing my fucking fire main thing of telling him how everything had to come down, all of this bullshit. It's all got to come down, and it really frightened him. He really frightened him, and he just couldn't wrap his head around what do you mean? That scares me. What are you saying? Everything's, and I feel that is a little bit like a bit of a Mack truck reality that people are seeing now more than ever. Okay, no, things really do have to be dismantled, and it takes courage. Hey. Like, this is where we want to inspire everyone listening that courage is love, and courage is an aspect of divine love, and we all have it within us, and it is a very powerful force to be, frequency to be sitting in and tapping in and demonstrating for others right now, because we do need courage to walk through as a humanity together at the moment. Into triumph, and into glory. Courage is needed. And I guess my mama's heart really sort of feels for people who are feeling, really, super challenged at the moment, and in fear, and the whole idea of ruin scares them. It's like they think they're going to lose something. Do you know? Is there a fern that can help us with this, I don't know, it's like the falsity, the false identity, that we have constructed for ourselves and in society, and therefore around humanity as a whole. We is there something that works with ruin to help dissolve that, or to sort of soften the blow, soften the collapse? Is there?
Well, yes, there certainly is. There's one in particular, because what a lot of people don't realize they're experiencing right now is grief. And as things become dismantled, okay, a lot of people are in the perception of loss, whether that be lifestyles. And remember the four aspects of living: environments, interactions, situations, and circumstances. A lot of us are in this field of perceiving that we are in loss. And so a lot of people are in grief and not attending to this grief, not acknowledging it. Now I'm going to take it back to the patriarchy. Remember, what's the fear? Unfit, unreliable, unworthy, unlovable. Oh, brah, he's not going to fucking say, I'm grieving.
No, it certainly is not.
Oh,
I'm fine.
Oh, right, I'm fine. We're good.
fine.
We're good. We're good. I love it. Everything's great.
Look at how hot I am right now.
So I want to clarify what grief is. According to the medicine, there's a fern called Palai Hinahina, and she teaches us about grief. She says grief is not about loss. That is the shadow. Grief is about completions. Something has completed itself. This means me, someone else, a situation, a circumstance, or an environment has been surpassed. Let go. And it is one of the greatest things we can betray in ourselves or others, is when we don't celebrate and honor when we have surpassed and outgrown, which means we're ever so closer to hala. So grief is not about loss. And as we go through the reductions, kila puel, reductions, dismantling, to know that we are, and the oscillation so fast, right? That we are surpassing. If I'm addicted to attachment, that's going to be very painful. There's going to be a lot of anguish.
Ouch. That's gonna fuck you up. Let that shit go now for smoothest results.
Smoothest results. And you said the word. You said, I heard you say this not too long ago. You said celebration, triumph. That's the key, to know that as we go through this process of grief, this means that we have surpassed something. Celebrate, be in triumph, let go.
Yeah, right on. It is probably one of the blaringly obvious markers of the immaturity of egocentric society, where we won't let go. Where we won't let go, and we won't, where we simply don't sort of recognize that evolution means we have to let go of something. It's like, we want to evolve, we want this new earth, we want to, but I'll stay in this job, and I'll stay in this structure where I'm paying taxes. And it's like, no, we got to let go of all of that. Like seriously, let go. It's funny. It's I don't know. It's comfortable. Again, I think people are somewhat afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
Afraid of the unknown, and want the evolution to be cozy.
Right. When and I'll speak from experience, when I was, in the Matrix, when I perceived to possess something, which is an attachment, right? When I felt I possessed something, it was comforting because I also felt I could predict it, even if it's harmful. So at least, we're going into battle. At least I can predict it. At least I know what to expect, right? So that's the pathological cycle that many of us are on because we don't deem ourselves worthy to be anything else. That's why I say the greatest achievement I've ever, or the greatest act of courage I've ever experienced for myself and continue to experience is aloha ma, self-reflective love. That pathological cycle, I've surpassed it. It brought me nothing but anguish. I let go. At that point of letting go, did I know where I was going to go? Fuck no. Was it scary? Fuck yeah. Right? But there's a level of trust in the sophistication of nature and consciousness. And to know that it is inherently safe. It's inherently safe. Why do I always have to question the safety? Why can't I just experience it? Brah, let it land. Yep. And like my masculine said, I just want to be held. I said, okay, brah, here it is. We're just going to land and let the trust, the safety of consciousness hold us.
Fuck yeah. You know, I've been having this sort of, I think I've been like, since I was a teen, I was like, bring on any illness and watch me fucking transmute it into fucking anything you want. You know, like I really thought that as a teen. I used to say to school friends, give me AIDS, I'll fucking transmute it. And they were like, she's a lunatic. And, you know, even just in the last few days, I was like, okay, you want to shed on me? You want to infect me with that alien tech shit that's going around? I was like, cool. Like, I will, like you say, let it land. Yeah. I will let it land, and then I will do what needs to be done. And I think that what you just said then is so potent around the, can you say it again? What were your words? You just talked about the safety of the field, the safety of nature, we are totally stepping out of patriarchy, which is I control. And if we are to really eject out of that and come into, no, I am in a part of a massively powerful web, you know, we don't have to know the outcome. We don't have to know the outcome. And in fact, we'll never know the outcome. We can have our dream and our vision, but we're creating together, right? We're co-creating. So, you know, but it's, I'm going all over the place.
I'm following.
Good, you're following me.
Yeah, bro. We are inherently safe. We are inherently safe. Yeah. We have chosen to scrutinize that, and we have chosen to create hurdles in order to challenge that. And my question to that is, rather than challenging, can't we just experience it? Right? Can I just land and experience life than always having to challenge it, scrutinize it, ridicule it? Let's just let it occur. Let it occur and let me be delivered. You know, consciousness, the phenomenal animate world, I know it wants nothing more than to deliver me unto my joy, deliver me unto my ambitions, and deliver me unto abundance. It's saying, I have so many fucking gifts for you.
You've won the lotto by simply remembering.
But you have to look this way. I have to be relevant. Okay? You're looking into a projection, a delusion. You're making that more relevant. You, as a sovereign being, with the gift of free will, you have to turn your head and look at me. You.
Boom.
Boom.
I love it. I love this human being. So exciting. So how would you translate that into nourishment?
Well, it's choice, right? Choice and relevance. What I choose to be most relevant in my life, it's gonna have to be nourishment. I mean, it can be harm and deprivation and all the things that fall under that umbrella, but I am now aware like seriously aware that it brings nothing but anguish, not just for myself, but for my community. That's not a contribution. That's a disservice to my collective. Do I want to be responsible for that? Fuck no.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
So I'm going to show up and offer a contribution. Material of nourishment? Yeah. That feels good. It feels natural. It feels responsible. It feels fair. It feels compassionate.
Nourishment, would you is it like could you call it like one's soul song? Like, is it in line with what someone is here to do or be or contribute, I should say? It's that, right? It's what makes someone come alive.
Yeah, the other word I'd love to express nourishment is faith. What's your faith?
Mm-hmm.
Your faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Faith, the word, and this is really unfortunate. The word and the energy faith has been so corrupted that many people downright fucking reject it.
Yes.
They're rejecting their own nourishment because they've allowed someone else's translation to be more relevant than my own translation. No.
Yep.
I'm going to translate it and I'm going to make it relevant and I'm going to make it relatable.
Yes.
I'm going to start speaking about it. I'm going to share it. And when I share my faith, it's not an imposition. Okay. I don't need validation. I'm sharing it as a service.
And that takes courage, right? It takes courage, like you're saying, to stand, to claim what nourishes us, what we want to contribute, and to bloody drive it home and to do it. It does take courage, and it is the way home. It is the way home because we all came here with a unique part of the puzzle. That's how I see it. I talk about that a lot in my work with my people. Like, we all have such a unique frequency that no one else on the planet carries, and your piece of the puzzle is so unique and fits in with others, and no one will ever have your piece, and you'll never have another one's. Like, your soul song is really a part of us knitting together this vision and this reality of the new earth. And it takes courage. Hey, it takes courage. Yeah,
yes.
It takes courage, and it takes courage to walk away from what harms us. It really does. And to be better than that and bigger than that. And yeah, it really takes courage. And I'm so glad you did it.
Mahalo. Me too. And like, brah, every day, right? It's a correction every day. I have to ensure, like, brah, pump the brakes. What's relevant right now, right? Sometimes I get spun, right? I find myself in hostility. I'm like, wow, it's so quick that we can go back to that, right?
Yeah.
Back to that space.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I love to remind, like, myself and everyone, bro, we're human fucking beings. Mm-hmm. We're sloppy, we're messy, we're organic, we're lovely, we're all of that. We're raw and we're dirty, we're clean and we're innocent, right? It's all about locating that nourishment, that faith, the mission, right? Just as you're saying, right? What is our specific frequency? How are we making that a contribution? And then applying consistency to that. Consistency leads to belief. Belief leads to respect. Respect leads to admiration. Boom. The mission is complete. I holla. We holla.
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 It reminds me of a word in Quechua, hay, which is just like hallelujah. Oh, darling soul, it has been so beautiful to chat with you today and to vibe with you and take listeners all around the cosmos within. Thank you so much, Keone. Thank you for being here. And where can people find you? Do you want to just and anything you've got coming up? Is there anything that people can join?
Oh my gosh. Well, my website is pohala.net, POHALA.net. And there is a link there where you can find all my virtual workshops. I do virtual workshops monthly. So I invite people to look into that. I do something called the emotional series where I focus on an emotion and a fern every month. This month it's Palai Hina Hina, the fern of grief, which is going to happen in just a couple days. But every month I showcase an emotion and the community comes together. You know, I'm just a facilitator of extracting everyone's translation of an emotion. There is more than enough space to accommodate all of our translations. Let's pavale pu'uvai, open our heart wider. This means the ability and the courage to share, speak up, tell people who I am, tell us who you are, Chrissy, and then the skill to receive people's clarification without scrutinizing it because it makes me uncomfortable. Let me receive as well. Pavale pu'uvai. In French, cœur means wholehearted. Wholehearted. How committed am I to my nourishment? That's gonna have to become the most relevant thing in my life.
Oh, you're a breath of fresh air, my buddy. You really are. So much love to you. Blessings on your way, and I hope the weekend goes well. And yeah, lots of love, and I cannot wait to one day dance with you and create something epic in the physical.
Oh, Rob, it's gonna be so lit. Yes, I cannot do that. Yes.
Oh, well, thanks again and go well, and thanks again for coming, and go well, and thanks again for coming.
Mahalo, 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 mahalo. Humble honor,
Love you,
privilege.
darling.
Aloha ma.
Aloha ma.